Hello, I'm Dr. Tiffany Tyler Garner, and I have the privilege of serving as the Children Advocacy Alliance's Executive Director. Our mission is to bring our time, talent, and resources to improving conditions for Nevada's children in the areas of education, safety, economic well-being, and health. We are committed to being the independent voice for Nevada's children and families. With each podcast, we will look at ways our community can work together to answer a critical call to action to provide our children with all the resources they need to make a strong start in life. Today, we'll explore some child welfare issues with State Senator Pat Spearman and Abraham Gomez from Nevada Youth Network.
Hi, I'm Chip Carter with Children's Advocacy Alliance, and welcome to our podcast. Today we have some great guests that I'd like to introduce to you right now. First of all, we have Senator Pat Spearman.
Hello.
Nice to have you with us. Thank you so much. And then we have Abraham Gomez with Nevada Youth Network.
Pleasure to be here, Chip.
So thank you both for being here. And I'd like to start out by talking to the Senator. It's a special anniversary of a day today. And I'm glad that you brought that up to us. So if you could tell us a little bit about that.
So today is the Equal Pay Day for Black women. It takes this long for Black women to make as much as their white male counterpart did the year before. And then for Latinas, we're talking in another month. And so that tells you a little bit about the way our society has not valued, but devalued the work and the contributions of women and the effect that that has on children. When you talk about pay equity, yes, it is about pay equity now, but it's also about financial security for the family, because in many cases, and it's not just in single parent households, but in many cases, it's the woman who has some options many times to bring home enough money to make sure that ends meet. So the fact that it takes this long for a Black woman to make as much as her white male counterpart did, I think it's not just egregious, but it's abominable, and it's time that we do something about that in all 50 states.
I totally agree with that. So equity is definitely one of the things that I have seen, and I think everybody sees issues with here in Nevada. So Abram, if you can tell us a little bit about what Nevada Youth Network does, and then I kind of want to tie that in with the equity as well.
Yeah, of course, Chip. So the Nevada Youth Network was founded in 2010. It was actually founded off the basis of Ruby Duncan. She actually was a welfare activist who saw that white women were making more money than Black women in the same neighborhood that she was from. So she stood up and took initiative. And Michael Flores, who founded the Nevada Youth Network, is a big supporter of her. And they actually have an amazing relationship. And they actually opened up Ruby Duncan Elementary School in the West Side a few years ago. But that's where the idea came from. And since then, since 2010, we've done after school programming, life skills programming, shown the kids, things such as yoga, Red Rock, took them to a basketball game, baseball game. A lot of these students that live on H Street, they haven't necessarily gone out of their neighborhood. So we've gone there and we've done homework, building with them. But more than that, we're there just to provide them with anything that they may not be getting from home or from school. So we definitely are a huge proponent of that community, and we've been there for so long. And we provide them with several different things that we can talk about later on: food insecurity, Halloween, Christmas comes around. Obviously, all those things cost money, and in a low poverty neighborhood such as that, they're lacking a lot of the resources. So that's where we come in and definitely help with that.
So, Senator, equity is such a prevalent issue, and it touches everything. And I think things like Nevada Youth Network are great because it helps address that. And I know there's other organizations in town that do much similar things in different ways, right? But it's such a core issue, such a root issue. So what are some of the things that we as Nevadans that may or may not be engaged in the advocacy or political process, but what would you suggest just anybody off the street might be able to do, because we see how it affects children And that's something that affects all of us because I don't have kids, but somebody that has kids and is educating their kids now is going to have to take care of me later when I'm in a nursing home. So I want them to be educated and compassionate people. So what are some of the things you see that we could be doing as Nevadans?
So here's how I describe this. The difference, people think equality and equity are the same thing, and they're not. When you talk about equality, that means, opportunity, but getting to the opportunity is where equity comes in. Okay, we all have an opportunity to get water, to get this glass of water, but how we get there and how far we have to go to get it is a matter of equity. I recently carried, in 2015, the first time I bought the pay equity bill, and it was not heard in the legislature. In 2017, brought it back and passed the legislature, but it was vetoed. So I brought it back again in 2019, and all this time I'm trying to hit on the fact that more women retire in poverty than men. And the primary reason for that is that there is an inequity in the pay scale. There's the opportunity to work, to get this job. There's an opportunity to become the supervisor, but it's in the equity piece where the women do not make as much. And so there was a woman who stopped me coming out of a store one day, and she said, "Aren't you Senator?" Yeah, and I said, "Oh yeah." She said, "Oh yeah," and she started talking to me about her life story, and she was glad to meet me and talk to me about some things that were happening in the legislature, etc. Then she shared with me that she had run into one of her former colleagues before she retired, and she said she remembered when he got hired, and she trained him, and they were talking. He said, "We ought to catch up sometime." She said, "Oh sure." And he said, here's my address. Come on out and visit me and the wife, and I know so and so would love to see you, and and so the address. She looked at the address and she said, "Wow, that's where you live?" And he said, "Yeah." She said, "How could you afford that on the pay?" And he said, "What do you mean, how can I afford it? I mean, we made," and then he cited the number. She said, "What?" And he said, "Did you make that?" And she said, No. And it was something like $30,000 less. So he has a nice home with a backyard or a patio is big enough for him to throw some steaks on the grill, and have a nice little set. But she's living in an apartment in a nice side of town, but she can't afford that. And they're both retired, and she trained him. So when you stop and you look at that, if a woman is making $30,000 less than her male counterpart, and the only reason that is happening is because of gender, and that person, the woman, is responsible for children. Now, here's what happens. She's working, and I'll just use Las Vegas and the Clark County as an example. It's a 24/7 town. Okay. Right. Somebody's at the blackjack table at 2:00 in the morning. Somebody else is busting the table. Somebody else is doing the cocktail. Somebody is always working. And so most of the time, if you go in there, most of the people that you see working those shifts are usually women. And when I was pastoring a church, one of my members said, "Pastor, I'm really trying to find somebody to stay with my kids because I have to work mids, and it's the shift differential that gives them the ability to make all the ends meet." And so pay equity is not just a matter of, well, look at the women, see what they're trying to do again. No, it's a matter of financial stability. It's a matter of, if you care about kids, then you make sure that these things happen, because the woman that you are denying an opportunity to make an equal salary because she is worth it, and her skills and things like that bring that type of an asset to your company. If you're denying that just based upon gender, don't talk to me about caring about kids. Don't talk to me about reproductive services and wanting to deny. If you care about kids, you care about people from birth all the way through life. That's the difference there. And we have to be a society that not only talks the talk, but we've got to walk the talk. Okay? Caring for children means looking at their lives in toto. Looking at everything around them that affects them. That's why it's important to fund education at the level that it needs to be funded. That's why it's important to fund family services at the level that it needs to be funded. That's why it's important for us to drive home the point that you cannot have one policing standard in this neighborhood and another in that neighborhood. It's important for us to drive those points home, because the silent victims are children.
Oh, absolutely. There's so much we have to unpack about all that. Oh my gosh, so many things I want to talk about. We're going to be here 3 hours. So just so you know now, because of all that. So Abraham, how are you seeing that equity that isn't happening currently? How are you seeing that play out with the children that you see in the center every day?
So Senator Spearman hit it right on the nail, honestly, when she said equity and quality. So Matt Kelly is the nearest elementary school. It is right across the street from the youth center. And Matt Kelly, a few weeks ago, Clark County School District came out saying that it has the highest teacher vacancy in the city at 40%. And 80% of the student population at Matt Kelly is Latino or African American. So, if we were to look at a school in Summerlin, very similar elementary school, the teacher vacancy there could be 5% to 0, right? But if you go to an inner city school that has a high population of African American students and Latino students, you see that. So you can see the equity versus the equality, right? It's not the same, and for all our kids, for all our students, at the end of the day, they just want to learn, and that should be standard all the way across the floor, but it's not. So, and a lot of our students, just as Senator Spearman was saying, they have a lot of issues at home, not just at school. They have food insecurity. What are they going to wear to school? Do they have clothes? School supplies. It's a lot more than just, hey, you come into school and then we send you home. That's why Clark County School District has been doing a better job of feeding all of our students. And Matt Kelly, every single student there is on a free and reduced meal program. And obviously, if the kids do not eat, how can you expect them to focus on school when they're hungry?
Yeah, and Chip, can I pick up on that?
Oh, yeah, of course, please.
We had a bill, I want to say it was 2017. I carried a bill for that very same reason. Michael Flores and I talked about this, and several other people. I remember when he started the Values Network, and the thing that people look at, they always look at the star rating for the school. And it's no coincidence that the star rating for schools that are, quote, deemed underperforming are in the same areas where there are food deserts, are in the same areas where there is high crime, are the same areas where you can pinpoint trauma, some type of trauma, the same areas where there's been abuse, either domestic abuse, child abuse, and that's physical, sexual, whatever. It's no coincidence. And so when you look at that, if you were going to look at that and every time one of those things turned the circle a darker blue, it would be indigo for those areas, okay? And so the bill that we passed, and I'm really hoping that they're doing this, the bill that we passed requires the state superintendent of education, along with the superintendents of local school districts, to put an explanation in the box. If it's a 2-star rating, here are some of the social determinants. You have to make sure that people understand that, because I don't care if you put a master teacher in there and they only have 3 students. If the student comes to school and they've not eaten, they're not going to learn. They're not ready to learn.
It's not a vacuum.
It's not a vacuum. It's not a vacuum. And some of the social determinants that we don't acknowledge here in Nevada, the fact that we have a lot of children under the age of 18 who are unfortunately here because they've been sex trafficked, involved in human trafficking. Some children have been kicked out of their homes because they have identified as LGBTQIA. Really? Some children, parents, and I really didn't believe this until someone said this to me when I was pastoring. Said, some parents bring their kids to Las Vegas and drop them off. I said, who would do that? Well, they bring them to Las Vegas to drop them off because it's 24/7 and they don't think it'll ever be dark on the streets. I'm saying, but still, who does that? Who does that? On what planet, under rock, what rock, in what universe is that okay? And so the social determinants is important. And that's important because every time we start talking about funding education, the thing that people get stuck on is, we can't. What do you mean we can't? Our values have to be reflected in our checkbook. And so when you stop and you start talking about that, we've got to make sure that we're doing that. And most of the teachers are women.
Yes.
Okay? And they are trying to support a family. So when we talk about those sorts of things, it's important for us to understand. Here's my thinking as a legislator. Every bill that comes before me, currently I chair Commerce and Labor. I'm the vice chair of Health and Human Services. I was chair of Health and Human Services a couple of sessions back. And so I look at these things, and it's not what comes before me in bill form is the presenting problem. It's my job as a legislator to look at the underlying issues that brought that presenting problem to me. And I will guarantee you that 98% of everything that comes through the legislature, if you dig down far enough and you peel the layers back enough, you will see that there's something that's impacting families. Okay? And that's the heart of what we do. And if that is not important to us, then we need to find something else to do. Because it takes a whole village to raise a child. You've heard that before, the African proverb. Okay?
But it's absolutely true.
But let me add to that. It takes a whole child to raise another village. How about that?
I like that. And I think presenting problem is such a great phrase. I'd not heard that before. And I think, and you can probably speak to this too, right? Like when a child shows up after school to be part of Nevada Youth Network, you may see just one part of the problem. Maybe they're hungry because they haven't eaten, but there's other determinants there, just like the senator's saying. There's so much there. So how do you get to that? Like, I understand from a legislative point of view, you're trying to dig down and get, well, if we pass a law about this, it impacts A, B, and C. So now we have to think, how do those get addressed? But when you're in a nonprofit trying to address things that are multi-factor, how do you go about something like that?
So, we've been there for over 12 years now, and we've created a connection with those students there. That community trusts us. And, Michael and Gloria, they've done such a great job where they bring in experts and they talk to the students, not just high school, but even some of the younger elementary students. We often ask them, we've had Metro come in and we said, here's Metro, talk to them on what you think would make your community safer. The kids tell them. The kids have ideas. They know exactly what's going on. They used to have a speed bump in Sherman Gardens, and they removed it. And when they removed it, that was one of the things the students said. We would like another speed bump in here because people are driving really fast, and the kids play there. So the kids know exactly what needs to be done. So if you ask them, I mean, literally, it doesn't matter if they're age 10, 11, 12. They know what's better for them. And they'll come out and tell you, well, we need this, we need that. And then that's when we need to step in and provide them with what they're asking for. I know at times we may just think, well, they're 10 or 11 years old. They don't know what's going on. But these 10 or 11-year-olds, they are more adult than I was at 11. A lot of these kids are taking care of younger siblings, right? It's not rare to see an 11-year-old take care of an 8-year-old, and the 8-year-old take care of the 5-year-old, and the 5-year-old maybe even take care of someone younger. That's kind of just the way it is. And, we just want to be there as much as we can and provide them with resources as well as experts to have them talk about it and open up about it, because it may be something taboo that they may not want to speak about, whether just a center, they have a lot of trauma, whether it's something that they see in the family or something that's going on outside of the home. But you have to talk to them and let them know that it's okay to feel like that. And we want them to become comfortable with their feelings and to share it, because if not, you're just going to hold it up pent in. And, we do yoga with them at least once a month, and the students absolutely love that. It's a way to kind of just, get away, relax, and, de-escalate whatever is going on, school, work, home, anything like that.
Yeah. And Chip, I'm not trying to take over.
No,
I'm not the moderator, but
I'm just
you
no.
You keep saying things that just, so the speed bump. And let me just say this. This is nonpartisan, not political. But it's very important for people to be involved at every level of government, because every level of government is impacting their lives. And so a speed bump is not something that the state, takes care of. It's not something that the state says you got to do this. It's not something that the federal government says. This is something that local governments do. Now, let me tie this in for you. Right now, we are facing a affordable housing crisis, the likes of which have not been seen since the 1920s and 30s. Okay? Process that for a minute. And it's families that are being pushed out. That's number one. So affordable housing crisis. Then you look at the building that's going on all around, and I'll just say Clark County. Look at all of the building that's going around North Las Vegas, Henderson, all the buildings going around. What's going up? Are we looking at trying to solve the immediate, most pressing problem, which is affordable housing, or are we looking at warehousing? And in North Las Vegas, where I live, there, the predominantly the growth that's happening, the predominant growth that's happening in and around low wealth neighborhoods is warehousing. And so the speed bump is a safety issue because, you know, children want to be able to play. And most of the time, we've not invested in parks and recs enough so that there are parks and recreational facilities close enough to those neighborhoods. And so there's
safe.
usually, and
To be
safe,
safe,
and
too.
safe, and safe, okay? And so that's one issue. But whenever you're building a warehouse and it's within 2 to 3 blocks of a school, you know that that presents another safety challenge. Okay, and so now we're talking about local government. When you start planning and developing communities, you have to look at the safety of the children. And most of the children, when you get out, you know, Ruby Duncan is in my district. When you get up between 1:30 and 3:15, every school in Clark County, you're going to see a traffic jam, because they're either school buses for high school students, school buses for middle school or elementary. Putting warehouses close to schools, okay? If people watch, what is it, NCIS?
NCIS.
All right? They get that stuff from someplace. So you don't put that there. Instead of putting a warehouse there, why not put green space there? Why not make this a place where after school they can stop, they can congregate? Why not look at programs when we talk about children? Why not look at programs that take some of the issues that are facing us and turn those lemons into lemonade? For example, it used to be a time when children would move back in with their parents because they couldn't find a job. You know what's happening today because of the affordable housing shortage? Parents are moving in with their children.
That I had not really heard.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
pretty.
Yes.
So
Older parents who are retired are moving in with their children because the housing prices have escalated so much. And even in the situations where it's supposed to be senior living, and it's not necessarily income based, but they know that the people that are living there are on a fixed income. Okay, when I have people calling me or emailing me and asking me for help because their rent has all of a sudden gone from $900 a month to $1,600 a month, and their Social Security is only $2,000 a month. Okay, so the reverse is happening. So let's look at this. Here, that is an issue. But guess what we can do? Some of those seniors, if they are physically able and have the mental agility to do so and the desire, why not take some of them, do an intergenerational program instead of putting a warehouse here? How about let's putting a building, some type of facility, because it's very hot here, but some type of facility where they can go there. And we have in Texas, I created this Roots program, and we called it Gracious Grannies and Precious Pawpaws. Okay, and people who were retired came in and they read, they helped fix peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, they told stories about, you know, what it was like when they were younger, and we're creating this intergenerational context so that we're solving a problem, but we're also saying to those who are seniors, your life is still worth something. And so that gives the children that they're working with the hope that when you pass 40, we're not going to throw you away. We're not going to send you out to the middle of the ocean, okay? You understand what I'm saying? And
do.
There's so many. I'm sorry. There's so many things that we need to be doing, and that's why you have to look at these issues, and it has to be looked at in toto.
Exactly, and it really is going to have to be a 10-hour podcast now, because now there's just so much I want to talk about. So you had mentioned the silent victims. And it's kids. I think that's something that we see all the time. And I want to tie that into something else that you were just saying with two things. The warehousing, I think that is definitely a thing that we see. We don't, I don't want to say anything about city planning because I don't know how things are planned. But my guess is it's not as driven by some of the values that we're trying to talk about here. But the other thing that I see in Vegas, coming from some cities that have had mass transit, a more involved. How can you do programs like Nevada Youth Network, tie it in with something intergenerational, when a lot of times transportation, there's an equity factor there too. Like I know I've heard horror stories about these people that have two jobs on the strip and have to get up at 4 a.m. to catch a bus here, to catch here, to go here.
Or ride their bike.
Ride their bike, and then it's 100 degrees, and how are you doing that? I mean, it just, there's so many factors here, right? So what I'm curious about is all that to get to the question, right? The opposite of that, I guess, would be is we need the warehousing because we need jobs, and we do. We obviously need all that kind of stuff, but how do we find a balance? And how do we explain to the parents and other interested parties here and not just Clark County? I mean, we're here filming, but in the rural areas, Pahrump, I've done work in Pahrump, and I've seen how it's just a different animal completely. And I imagine that's what it's like up in northern Nevada as well too. You've got very different sets of priorities. So how do you balance talking to all the people that need to be engaged with this and trying to show values driven, right? I think that's a great way. So how do you talk to people about, Abraham, how do you talk to people about what y'all are doing and why it's so important? And then I want to ask you a little bit, a similar question, but a little bit different.
Keep me on track.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So I think the reason why we do it is we know that there's a need there, right? Just Clark County School District provided it, that it has the hired teacher vacancy. The students there for being there for over 12 years, we know that they want to learn. They're just as eager as any other child in the city or the state, but sometimes they don't have the resources available, whether that's school supplies, extracurricular activities sometimes that they want to do. That costs money. If you want to do football, if you want to do baseball,
that's also
uniforms,
a thing, right? Yeah.
that costs money. And it comes back to the equity versus equality, right? Yes, you can have the same programs as anywhere in the state, but can families that are already struggling and already in public housing, can they afford to go buy 2-3 uniforms or baseball bat or glove and all that? It's tough. So what we do is we try to provide that with whatever they need. And, we are a youth center and we do homework with them, but we do so much more. We try to teach them life skills that they may not find out anywhere else. And Senator Spearman said it earlier. So a majority of the head of households at Sherman Gardens, a majority of them are women, right? There are not a lot of male role models there. That's why when we try to recruit as many males to come and volunteer as we can, because these students, they do not see that a lot. And that's a big issue. But I would say the reason we do it is we know that it needs to be done. And luckily, Michael and his mom, they've been the pillars of continuing NYN going. And, truthfully going there every Tuesday, I work nearby, but it's something that I look forward to because it's so rewarding. I've seen kids ages 5, 6, now they're getting ready to go to high school or getting ready to go to college. It's so rewarding seeing them grow up and becoming the lady or the gentleman that they are. And at the end of the day, we know that sometimes to get out of the situations that they're in, education is the only way. A lot of the students that we've helped, they're first generation. They've never had someone go to college. They do not know how to navigate it. They do not know how to fill out FAFSA. They don't know.
How daunting.
Yeah.
Incredibly.
How do you, if you parents have not experienced this, how do you look at the craziness of funding, the paperwork and everything? I mean, it is. I mean, it's been a long time since I was in college, but I think about that, and I think how awful, especially if your English is a second language, right? Like that's not easy. It's not the systems aren't geared for that. So I think that's a pretty. So what I wanted to ask you in similar terms is, how do you argue that with people in the legislature or who are looking more on the economic front than opposed to the, I really like the idea of if you're valuing children, it's their whole life. It's not just a certain part of their life, not even when they graduate. You still have to, they're becoming people. We have to value them as people too. So how do you discuss those things and the need for equity when you're dealing with people who may only be looking at a sheer economic, like, well, this will bring thousands of jobs into Nevada. Hard to say no to that, but you've got to balance it. So how do you do that?
And so here's the thing. Thousands of jobs into Nevada. How long will those jobs last? Okay, because we are right now, we've already transferred from a labor economy into a knowledge economy. We've already made that transition, okay? We're still basing things on labor. How about this? And I don't begrudge anyone who wants to put a warehouse up, okay? That's it. First of all, it has to be long-term planning, both at the municipal level and at the state level. What are we talking about? We know that technology and innovation is taking over. I don't know if people have been paying attention to what's happening in Amazon world, but the jobs right now, the tens of thousands of jobs right now that Amazon has, in a few years, about 40% of those jobs are going to be gone away. Guess why? Oh yeah, that's right. Technology. Robots are going to be doing it. Okay? Just like the automobile industry changed and Henry Ford's model, with 20 people on the line, if you go to a Tesla factory, they got 5 people making the car. Okay? And then you got 2 other people who are checking the widgets and the whatnots on the computers that are helping to do that. So you can't just say these are going to be 10,000 jobs that we're going to bring in because of, quote, this warehouse. How long will that last? And if that is not going to last more than 20 years, which is about a generation and a half, then what we have to do is we have to balance the ask, the request of that person or that company, that corporation, with the needs of the community. All right, and where do we go?
And match it to the skills, because I think that ties into the educational point. Those skills have to be on par.
Exactly, and here's the other thing, and it's not just, you said it's not just, elementary, but they go on, some of the people are first generation college. Guess where in North Las Vegas, 28% of the students at Nevada State College come from where? Guessed it, North Las Vegas. Okay?
Oh, okay.
Most of that population, they are coming from Black and brown communities. They're coming from BIPOC communities, okay? Black, Indigenous, and people of color. They're coming from those communities. How much do you hear about what Nevada State College is doing? Very little.
Not that much.
Okay, if they want to do a newscast about how many times they reported on what the good that they're doing at Nevada State College, and it was 30 minutes, 27 would be filled with commercials. Okay, because they don't pay a whole lot of attention, but that's where they're going because that's where they can afford, and it's small enough so that it's not intimidating. Now, recently, the president of Nevada State College has said, Dr. Pollard has said, she wants to elevate that status from college to university. That makes a difference. And let me tie this in for the children of today that will be becoming the students and the graduates of tomorrow. When you graduate and you're from college and you're from higher education and your diploma has college on it, it does not carry the same amount of weight and does not get you the same amount of traction if your diploma carried university on it. So who are we hurting in the long run if her goal of changing it from college to university doesn't happen? And oh, by the way, they meet the requirements for that. It's simply a matter of changing the name. They have the programs, they have the amount of master's degree programs, level programs that you need. You have all of that. And so again, I say the issue for us, if we value children, let's start there and then spread out. And we've got to value all children. So I'm not saying anything against warehousing. I'm saying let's put them someplace where it's safe. And let's make sure that whatever the plan that has been appropriated for that warehouse, make sure it's going to be in existence longer than 5 to 10 years. When you start talking about workforce development, that's where federal, state, and municipalities have to work together, because the jobs that are now on the strip, many of those jobs are going away. They're already, testing out, robots for bartending. What happens to the people who are now 45 or 50, and that's what they've been doing all their life? I went to one of the hotels downtown to an event last night, and you know what? Once upon a time, people in Las Vegas didn't have to get a high school diploma. You know why? Because they make $300 parking cars. Guess what now? There's no attendant out there. You scan a QR code and punch in a number to text. How many jobs were lost? What happened to the people? That's the only thing they were trained to do. And how many of those people have families? How many of those people have children? And so here's what we've done. And I'm sorry, this is what we've done. We've been one-dimensional in our thinking and 3-dimensional in our criticizing.